Imagine you walk into a meeting room filled with smart, competent people. The kind of room where everyone has spent years mastering their craft, earning their place, proving their value. You would expect confidence to come from the best minds in that room. You would expect clarity from the people who understand the problem the deepest. And you would expect hesitation from the ones who barely know what they are doing. But that is not what happens. In almost every room, the most capable person is the one quietly sitting back, thinking, measuring their words, replaying the variables in their mind before they speak. They say things like, "I am not sure, I might be wrong. Let me check that again." They hesitate not because they lack skill, but because they understand the complexity of what is being discussed. And then there is the other type of person, the one who speaks with absolute conviction, the one who gives instant answers to questions they barely understand, the one who never says, "Let me think," because they do not think, the person who has no idea how much they do not know. And somehow, these are the voices that dominate the room, the loud ones, the certain ones, the reckless ones. You have seen this pattern so many times that it stopped surprising you. At work, at school, in your family, in conversations with friends. The people who understand the least often speak the most. The people who carry the least weight feel the least pressure. And the people who are genuinely skilled often carry quiet doubts that no one else can see. So a question begins to take shape. A question that every thinking person eventually asks. Why do the most capable people doubt themselves so deeply, while the least capable project the strongest confidence? Why does awareness create hesitation, while ignorance creates certainty? Why does the person who should speak hold back, and the person who should hold back speak? This is not a random psychological glitch. This is not a personality quirk. And it is not your fault if you have lived this experience from the inside. There is a deeper mechanism operating here, a pattern in human cognition, a trap built into the mind itself. Today, we are going to open it. You see this pattern everywhere once you know how to look at it. In the workplace, the most competent person in the room is rarely the one selling themselves. They hesitate because they understand the complexity of what is being discussed. They see the risks, the variables, the unknowns. And because they hesitate, people often mistake them for being unsure or lacking confidence. Meanwhile, the person who barely understands the problem speaks with complete certainty. They answer quickly. Meanwhile, the person who barely understands the problem speaks with complete certainty. They answer quickly. They project confidence. They simplify everything. And because they sound sure, people assume they know what they are talking about. You see the same dynamic at home. The parent who actually cares deeply wonders if they are doing enough. The one who reflects the least believes they have already mastered everything. And online, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. People with the shallowest grasp of a topic make absolute claims. They speak in bold lines. They leave no room for doubt. While the people who truly understand the subject tend to say things like, "It depends," or "We do not have enough data yet." What looks like confidence is often ignorance. What looks like doubt is often awareness. The pattern is too consistent to be random, too universal to be coincidence. It shows up across industries, cultures, and generations. So the question becomes unavoidable. Why does the world reward certainty over competence? And why do capable people so often question themselves? To answer that, we have to go deeper into the mechanics of the human mind. What you are seeing is not a personal flaw, and it is not a rare quirk of personality. It is a built-in pattern of human cognition, a predictable result of how the mind processes knowledge, uncertainty, and confidence. Most people assume that confidence rises with skill, that the better you get at something, the more certain you become. But human psychology does not work that way. In reality, confidence often peaks when skill is at its lowest, and doubt increases as mastery grows. This is why the person who barely understands a topic speaks with absolute clarity, while the person who understands it deeply hesitates. The first group does not see the complexity. The second group sees too much of it. Across industries and cultures, researchers have found the same phenomenon repeating itself. The less someone knows, the more likely they are to overestimate their abilities. The more someone learns, the more they become aware of everything they still do not understand. This is why capable people feel the weight of doubt. They are looking at the actual structure of the problem, not a simplified version of it. And the more they learn, the more the boundaries of the unknown expand. So if you have ever wondered why you doubt yourself, while others speak with blind certainty, it is not because something is wrong with you. It is because you are seeing reality more accurately than they are. Self-doubt is not a glitch in your personality. It is a sign that your mind is operating at a higher resolution. If this pattern is real, if it appears everywhere, if it shapes how people speak, lead, and make decisions, then there is a deeper question hiding underneath it. What exactly makes capable people doubt themselves in the first place? Because hesitation is not random, awareness is not random, doubt is not random. They come from a specific mechanism inside the mind, a mechanism that activates only when someone sees more than the average person sees. So the real question is not why some people are overconfident. That part is easy. Ignorance naturally creates certainty. The real mystery is this: why does growing in skill make you feel less certain? Why does understanding more make you question yourself more? And why do the people with the sharpest minds often carry the deepest doubt? To answer that, we need to open one of the most important findings in modern psychology, the Dunning Kruger trap. If this is your first time here, ThinkMate is where we question what others accept. That's the kind of mind we build this channel for. Subscribe if you want more. Now, back to it. To understand why capable people doubt themselves, we have to begin with one of the most unintuitive discoveries in psychology. A discovery born from a crime so ridiculous that even the police did not believe it at first. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler robbed 2 banks in broad daylight without wearing a mask while staring directly into the security cameras. When the police arrested him hours later, he was genuinely shocked. He kept repeating the same line, "But I wore the juice." He truly believed that rubbing lemon juice on his face would make him invisible to surveillance footage, because lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. He was not mentally ill. He was not joking. He simply did not know enough to understand how little he knew. This case caught the attention of 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They wondered how many people walk through life with the same problem. Not with lemon juice, but with confidence built on ignorance. So they designed an experiment that would go on to change modern psychology. They tested students on humor, logic, and grammar. After each test, the students were asked to estimate how well they performed compared to everyone else. The results were astonishing. The bottom 25% of performers, the ones who scored the worst, consistently believed they were above average. Some placed themselves in the top 1/3. They were not lying. They genuinely believed they had done well. They lacked the very skill required to see that they lacked the skill. Meanwhile, the top performers, the students who scored in the highest percentiles, consistently underestimated their abilities. They assumed their strong performance was only average. They believed others must have done just as well. Dunning and Kruger called this the double curse. The incompetent suffer 2 burdens. They do poorly, and they lack the ability to recognize how poorly they are doing. But there is a second half of the trap that most people overlook. High performers suffer their own form of blindness. They see the complexity of the task. They see the edge cases. They see the uncertainty baked into every problem. And because they see so much, they believe everyone else must see it too. This is why the most capable people often assume their skills are nothing special. They underestimate the difficulty of what comes naturally to them. They forget the years of learning and failure that led them to this moment. Psychologists call this the expert blind spot. There is another layer to this trap, one that affects everyone but hits capable people the hardest. It is called the illusion of explanatory depth. Most people believe they understand things they cannot actually explain. They think they understand how a lock works until they have to explain it. They think they understand politics until someone asks them to justify their position. But the more you know, the more the illusion collapses. And what replaces it is not confidence, it is humility. The Dunning Kruger Effect is not an internet meme. It is not a joke about dumb people. It is a map of how confidence forms inside the human mind. And it tells us something crucial. The reason capable people doubt themselves is not because they are weak, it is because they can see what others cannot. They can see the edges of their knowledge. They can see the questions they have not answered. They can see the scale of what they still do not know. Ignorance creates certainty. Understanding creates doubt. And that doubt is the price of clarity. If the Dunning-Kruger effect explains why the least capable feel certain, Daniel Kahneman helps us understand why the most capable feel doubt. His research divides human thinking into two modes, System 1 and System 2, two different engines running inside the same mind. System 1 is fast, automatic, impulsive. It jumps to conclusions. It fills in missing information. It looks for simple patterns. And it does all of this without conscious effort. It gives you the feeling of certainty long before you have earned it. Most overconfident people live almost entirely in System 1. System 2 is the opposite, slow, deliberate, analytical. It questions assumptions. It checks for errors. It searches for evidence. It scans for exceptions to the rule. It forces you to think about what could go wrong. And because it works slowly, it often produces a feeling that many people mistake for insecurity. But it is not insecurity, it is awareness. This is why capable people often hesitate. They are not running on System 1, they are running on System 2. Their mind is scanning the problem from multiple angles. They are thinking through consequences that other people cannot even see. They are analyzing gaps, contradictions, and unknowns. And the more variables they see, the harder it becomes to speak with absolute certainty. Kahneman also identified several cognitive traps that hit inexperienced thinkers harder than experts. Overconfidence bias, the illusion of validity, the planning fallacy, biases that make people feel certain far beyond what their knowledge can justify. These biases inflate confidence at the exact moment when competence is lowest. But here is the hidden twist. Experts do not escape these biases by being smarter. They escape them by using System 2 more often, by slowing down, by interrogating their assumptions, by refusing to trust the first answer that comes to mind. This creates an uncomfortable paradox. The people who are least capable appear the most confident, because they are running on a fast system that never stops to question itself. And the people who are most capable appear the most uncertain, because the very skills that make them competent also make them aware of everything that could be wrong. In other words, confidence is not a measure of accuracy. It is a feeling, and feelings can be dangerously misleading. The more your mind knows how to think, the less willing it becomes to pretend that it already has the truth. There is another layer to this story, one that rarely gets talked about, but every capable person feels it. It is the burden of complexity. When you are good at something, you do not see a simple task. You see a network of moving parts. You see the risks other people ignore. You see the exceptions that break the rule. You see the details that can flip the entire outcome. The more competent you become, the more you stop living in a world of straight lines and start living in a world of branching possibilities. This is why capable people hesitate. They are not overwhelmed by the task. They are overwhelmed by the number of ways the task can go wrong. Their brain cannot look at a problem without seeing its hidden layers. And once you see those layers, you cannot unsee them. People with less experience the opposite. They do not see the hidden variables. They do not see the weak points in their plan. So they walk forward with confidence that feels almost unshakable. Not because they understand the situation, but because their mind is blind to everything that could go wrong. Psychologists call this the curse of knowledge. Once you learn something deeply, you forget what it was like not to know it. You assume everyone sees what you see. And when they do not, you assume the problem must be with you. This is the quiet weight that capable people carry. The more they understand, the more uncertainty they notice. The more skilled they become, the more flaws they detect. The deeper they think, the more fragile their confidence feels. Doubt does not come from weakness, it comes from vision. There is a quiet struggle that almost every high performer lives with, but rarely speaks about. It is the feeling that no matter how much they achieve, it is never enough. No matter how much they improve, they still see the gap. Not between themselves and other people, but between themselves and the standard they believe they should meet. Capable people rarely compare themselves downward. They compare themselves upward, toward an ideal version of who they could be. They hold themselves to standards so high that even their best days feel insufficient. And because their reference point is perfection, they always feel behind. People with less skill never experience this. They compare themselves to people below them and feel satisfied. They hit a small target and assume they have mastered the entire field. They mistake ease for expertise. But the more capable someone becomes, the sharper their self-awareness grows. They remember the mistakes that taught them their hardest lessons. They see the flaws in their current performance. They recognize how much more there is left to learn. This awareness creates a subtle pressure, a feeling that they are still not good enough, even when everyone around them sees their talent clearly. This is why high performers often appear quieter than their peers. They do not feel the need to prove themselves loudly. They are too busy noticing the next level they have not reached yet. What looks like insecurity from the outside is often discipline on the inside. And what looks like self-doubt is usually the shadow of ambition. To understand why capable people doubt themselves, we have to step into a deeper layer of the human experience. A layer that psychology can describe, but philosophy can explain. And no one understood this better than Søren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard believed that anxiety is not a disorder. It is not a weakness. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. He saw anxiety as the natural consequence of having freedom, awareness, and the ability to imagine multiple futures. In his view, only a conscious mind feels the weight of possibility. This is why capable people feel more anxiety, not less. They see more. They understand more. They recognize the cost of every decision. They know the stakes. And the moment you can see the full range of possible outcomes, doubt becomes unavoidable. Someone who lacks insight feels none of this. They do not see alternatives. They do not see risks. They do not see the complexity behind their choices. Their world is small, so their anxiety is small. Their decisions feel simple because their understanding is simple. But when your awareness expands, your mental universe expands with it. You see the consequences of action and inaction. You see how much responsibility you actually carry. You see how fragile outcomes can be. And suddenly, doubt is not a flaw. It is a sign that you are awake. Kierkegaard called this the dizziness of freedom. The moment when you realize how many paths you could take, and how every path carries a weight you cannot ignore. This dizziness creates anxiety, but it is the same anxiety that makes growth possible. So if you doubt yourself, it may not be because you are weak. It may be because you are standing in front of choices that only a capable mind can even recognize. Doubt is the shadow cast by freedom, and only those who can think deeply ever see it. If doubt rises with awareness, then why does the world seem to reward the exact opposite? Why do the loudest voices dominate the room while the most capable minds stay quiet? Because society is built on a simple illusion. People mistake confidence for competence. In workplaces, the person who speaks first is often judged as the most prepared. The one who answers quickly is seen as decisive. The one who sounds sure is seen as a leader, not because they understand the problem, but because certainty feels comforting to everyone listening. Managers, co-workers, and entire companies fall for this illusion. They see confidence and assume it must come from knowledge. But most confidence in the real world comes from something simpler, not knowing enough to hesitate. You see the same pattern online. People who have read a topic for 10 minutes speak with authority. People who have studied it for 10 years speak with caution, because they know how easily the truth can be distorted. They know how many details matter. They know how fragile certainty actually is. But the world does not reward caution. It rewards simplicity. It rewards boldness. It rewards the person who says it loudly, even if it is wrong. And because of that, capable people often look less confident than they truly are, while the least capable look more confident than they should be. This mismatch creates a silent injustice. The world elevates certainty, not accuracy, volume, not depth, appearance, not substance. And unless you understand this illusion, you will spend your whole life misreading yourself and overrating others. The world does not reward wisdom. It rewards the performance of certainty. There is a belief many people carry without ever questioning it. The belief that doubt means weakness, that hesitation means insecurity, that uncertainty means you are somehow less capable than the people who speak with conviction. But this belief collapses the moment you look at how real expertise works. The greatest scientists in history used phrases like, "as far as we know," or "based on current evidence." The best engineers question every assumption before they sign their name. The most skilled leaders rethink their decisions because they understand the damage a single mistake can cause. Their doubt is not a lack of strength. It is a form of responsibility. Meanwhile, the people who are most certain are often the ones who have never looked beneath the surface. They do not see the risks. They do not see the exceptions. They do not see the moving parts. Their confidence is not earned. It is borrowed from ignorance. This is why you should never compare your internal doubts to someone else's external performance. Their certainty may come from not knowing enough to question themselves. Your hesitation may come from understanding more than they ever will. Self-doubt is not a signal that you are falling behind. It is a signal that you are engaged with reality. When you start seeing the complexity of the world, you stop pretending you have all the answers. And that moment, though uncomfortable, is the moment you begin to think clearly. Your doubt is not a weakness. It is evidence of depth. If self-doubt is not weakness, then what does real strength look like? It is not overconfidence, and it is not paralysis. It is a balance that most people never learn to develop. Capable people do not need to shout about what they know, but they also cannot afford to hide behind fear. So the real goal is not to eliminate doubt. It is to carry it well, to act in spite of it, to think with humility but move with intention. This balance has a name: confident humility. Confident humility means you trust yourself enough to take action, but you respect reality enough to question your assumptions. You do not pretend to have every answer. You do not pretend to be flawless. You simply understand that progress comes from action and clarity comes from reflection. You need both. A confident fool charges forward without thinking. A paralyzed thinker waits forever for perfect certainty. But a person with confident humility moves forward while thinking. They do not need absolute confidence to begin. They only need enough clarity to take the next step and the courage to adjust along the way. This is the mindset that separates growth from stagnation. It is what allows capable people to use their doubt as fuel instead of letting it become a cage. It turns hesitation into caution and caution into judgment. Confident humility is not about feeling sure. It is about being steady, acting without arrogance, thinking without fear. And it is the foundation for how capable people rise, even while carrying their doubt. Capable people do not eliminate self-doubt. They learn to work with it, move with it, and even use it. Self-doubt becomes a companion, not an enemy. But how do they do it? The first step is action, not impulsive action, but small, deliberate movement. When you take action, even in tiny steps, you collect information the mind cannot generate on its own. Reality gives you feedback, and feedback cuts through fear. The moment you act, doubt stops being an idea and becomes something you can measure and refine. The second step is comparison in the right direction. Most capable people fall into the trap of comparing themselves to an ideal version of who they think they should be. That version is unreachable. It expands as you grow. So the only comparison that makes sense is with who you were yesterday. If you are moving forward, even slightly, you are winning, and the numbers will show it long before the feelings do. The third step is knowing when to switch systems. Use System 2 for analysis, strategy, and planning. But when it is time to move, let System 1 take over. Action requires simplicity. You cannot think through every possibility while you are in motion. You need clarity, not complexity. And the only way to get clarity is to act, adjust, and act again. Capable people overcome self-doubt by refusing to wait for perfect certainty. They understand that certainty never arrives. What arrives is evidence, and evidence is created only by movement. You do not defeat doubt by thinking. You defeat doubt by progressing. Doubt does not appear in empty minds. It appears in minds that can see far. It follows people who think deeply, who feel the weight of their choices, who understand the cost of being wrong. Most of the certainty you see in the world is an illusion. It comes from people who have not looked closely enough to be afraid. People who live on the surface of things, who confuse simplicity with truth, who speak before they understand. Your doubt comes from something different. It comes from awareness. It comes from vision. It comes from the ability to see possibilities that others ignore. And the moment your mind expands, certainty becomes harder to hold. This is why capable people speak carefully. This is why they hesitate before they answer. This is why they question themselves even when they are right. Because they are not only thinking about what they know, they are thinking about everything they do not know yet. So if you feel doubt, remember this. It does not mean you are unprepared. It does not mean you are inadequate. It means your mind is operating at a higher resolution than the world around you. Doubt is not the opposite of confidence. It is the shadow cast by depth. The question is not whether you doubt yourself. The question is whether you will keep moving anyway. And that is what separates those who grow from those who remain certain and small. If this made you see the world a little clearer, stay, think deeper. This is ThinkMate.